Discover the incredible truth. How President McKinley's hidden lies changed history forever. In the quaint town of Cedar Grove, the sun dipped low, casting a golden hue over the homes of hard-working families. Among them lived Clara, a dedicated widow, who at 32 was bearing the weight of the world. Each morning, the sound of her children's laughter mixed with the clanging of the textile mill, where she toiled tirelessly. Her husband had been a brave soldier in the Spanish-American War, a war fought for freedom and honor, only to be snatched away from her in its chaos. Now all Clara could think about was providing for her two little ones, their innocent smiles pushing her to chase an elusive American dream. But as she worked, she would often gather with her neighbors, sharing stories of love, loss, and the mounting pressure of the failing economy. The rift was palpable. Once united in community spirit, neighbors now looked at one another with silent suspicion. The threads that bound them pulled taut, each person weighed down by their personal ambitions and disappointments. Then, on a fateful evening, the town was electrified by a proclamation from the local newspaper, unveiling a monumental revelation. President McKinley had manipulated war narratives to serve his agenda. Clara's heart raced as she recalled the brave man she lost, fighting for a cause she now doubted. Could it be that the very ideals he had died for were mired in deception? As Clara wrestled with her emotions, her thoughts twirled into a storm. What did it mean to be a patriot? Was it loyalty to a flawed leader or standing up against corruption? With fire in her soul, she gathered her fellow townspeople in the meeting hall, urging them to unite against the growing chasm of economic disparity. "We need to fight for what is right," she proclaimed, her voice steady despite her trembling heart. "Our loved ones deserve justice." In the crowd, emotions surged. Neighbors who had shared pies and secrets now clashed over ideologies. Faces turned red with anger. Others shone with inspiration. Clara watched friendships fracture, yet unexpected alliances formed. Families who had once shied away from dissent became emboldened as smoke-filled dreams clashed against harsh realities. Yet as Clara stood in the whirlwind of change, her heart quaked with doubts. She faced the painful question: could they confront the ugly truths about their leaders without losing everything? The answer loomed above her like a dark cloud, heavy with consequence. Before they could forge ahead, the entire town buzzed with energy, gathering at the town hall, pulsing with anger, hope, and despair. Clara felt the heartbeat of the community. Would they dare confront their leaders, demanding accountability? Or would the fear of losing everything wrap them in silence? Just then, a knock echoed through the halls. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Her heart raced. Who would answer, and what truths would emerge? She stood at the brink, her heart pounding with urgency, feeling the weight of history poised to move in her hands. Uncertain yet determined, Clara was ready to embrace her power, poised to reclaim not just her dignity, but the very fabric of her community. The door creaked open, and Clara's breath hitched. A tall man with disheveled hair and a worn coat stepped inside, his eyes wide and filled with urgency. It was Mr. Thompson, the local historian, a man who always spoke in a hush, as if afraid his words might shatter the air. He had a stack of papers clutched to his chest, and Clara could see the tension in his shoulders. "Clara," he gasped, "you need to hear this. It's worse than we thought." The room pulsated with anticipation, a collective breath held tightly. Clara gestured for him to continue, her heart racing. What more could there be that would change their world upside down? "They're not just lies about the war, Clara," Mr. Thompson continued, glancing nervously over his shoulder as if the walls held ears. "The fabric of our society is at stake. McKinley has supported policies that enrich the few while crippling the working class." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara felt a cold chill creep up her spine. All her worries, her nightly prayers for her children, suddenly felt brushed aside like leaves in a storm. He has been manipulating the economy, pushing industries to inflate prices while he pockets the profits. "The mill are jobs, Clara. It's all part of a larger scheme." Mr. Thompson's face was bright with fervor, but the weight of his words made Clara feel dizzy. Voices erupted around her. People shouted about their struggles, about the fear that loomed over their town. growing thicker each day. Clara's chest tightened as she absorbed the gravity of what was unfolding. This revelation wasn't just political, it was personal. It tugged at the fabric of lives, weaving despair into every home, hurting families just like hers. "Mr. Thompson, what do we do?" Clara found her voice, rising above the chaos, steadying the tide of emotions swirling around her. "We can't let our children live in a world built on lies. If we stand together, we can make a difference." The crowd began to murmur in agreement. Clara felt a surge of hope, igniting a fire within her once more. Together they could create a change. She could see it in their eyes, a flicker of determination igniting like a spark in the darkness. But outside that hall, the air was thick with foreboding. The fear of the unknown spread like a shadow over Cedar Grove. Would they really be able to confront the power structure that loomed large over them? What would become of them if they succeeded or if they failed? As Clara looked into the faces of her neighbors, she noticed a deep-rooted fear mingling with resolve. Everyone wanted justice, but at what cost? Families were divided. Some were too frightened to stand up, convinced that silence was safer. Just then, a woman's voice broke through her thoughts. "What about the children, Clara? What happens to them if we speak out?" Clara paused, the gravity of that question weighing heavy. It haunted her thoughts, gnawing at her fierce resolve. Everything she was fighting for hinged on ensuring a better future for her children. But she couldn't shake the fear of the repercussions. "We'll have to be brave," she finally responded, her voice steady. "For our children, we put everything on the line." But as the meeting buzzed with the energy of determination mixed with trepidation, Clara couldn't help but wonder, was bravery enough? The night pressed on, full of challenges and uncertainty. Clara felt the walls closing in, their decision looming larger than ever. Just as she contemplated the road ahead, another knock echoed through the hall. This time, a chill ran down her spine, not from fear, but something darker. An innate instinct that whispered more trouble was about to unfold what awaited them at the door. Waiting to unravel even deeper truths? Clara's pulse quickened as she shared uncertain glances with the crowd. The room fell silent, tension thick enough to taste. Each heart seemed to drum in unison, echoing the unspoken fear that resonated through their small community. Another knock cut through the silence. It was urgent, insistent. Clara stepped forward, propelled by a mix of dread and curiosity. She turned the heavy knob, taking a deep breath. But when the door swung open, it wasn't another face familiar from the meeting. Instead, the silhouette revealed a young boy with wide, frantic eyes, drenched in rain, clutching a strap that held together a tattered satchel. "Help!" he exclaimed, his voice trembling. "They're coming for us." Gasps filled the air again. Clara knelt down, putting a calming hand on the boy's shoulder. "Who's coming?" she asked, trying to gather the fear swirling around her. "The men in suits," he stammered, glancing back over his shoulder, fear racing through him. "They're looking for anyone who talks about McKinley, please. My father said we need to keep quiet or they'll take us away." Clara's heart sank like a stone. The boy's words hung heavy in the air. It was no longer just the politics of their town. It had morphed into a personal threat that could tear families apart. Her mind raced, searching for answers. "What did your father say? We need to know." The boy bit his lip, glancing anxiously around the room, as if shadows were creeping in. "That he found something, some papers, proof. He said we had to gather others." The crowd erupted in a flurry of whispers, voices overlapping, individuals leaning in closer, drawn by the urgency of the moment. Clara's resolve hardened. This wasn't just about speaking out anymore. It was about safety. Her children needed to grow up in a world where they were free to express themselves without fear of retribution. "We can't let fear take control," Clara said, raising her voice against the rising tide. "If we stand up for the truth together, we can protect each other. We can create a wall against them." The boy nodded, hope flickering in his eyes as Clara's words sparked something in the crowd. Slowly, hands lifted. Voices began to echo her sentiment. "We will not be silent. This is our home." But as the rallying cries filled the hall, The boy's eyes darted to the window. Clara held her breath, following his gaze. Outside, a dark figure loomed against the dusky light, tall and imposing. The sense of urgency blasted through her. They had only moments to decide. "Get inside," she urged, pulling the boy closer as people pressed against each other, fear mingling with determination. "We have to hide until we know who it is." Shuffling and quick whispers filled the room as they darted for cover. Clara's heart raced, thumping against her ribs. What if this figure was here to silence them? The fear was palpable, but so was the strength she felt next to her neighbors. The flicker of bravery sparking in those around her as shadows closed in around the hall. Clara knew that every choice would hold the weight of their fate. Would they fold under pressure, risking everything? Or would bravery pave the way for hope? Just as the figure knocked against the door again, a voice echoed from behind it. "This is for your own good. You can't stand against the truth anymore." Clara's insides twisted at the words. Who were they to define truth? Discovery could have dire consequences. But was there any way to escape this storm brewing outside? Her heart clenched. Alongside her neighbors, she was ready to confront whatever darkness waited beyond. But as the hush deepened once more, she could only wonder what would happen next. The air inside the hall felt charged, thick with anticipation. Clara glanced around, measuring the faces of her neighbors. Her friends, each one a reflection of her own fear and determination. Whispers grew fainter, replaced by the sound of that persistent knocking echoing through the wood of the door. Heartbeats quickened, and the impossible question loomed. Who were the men in suits? "Gather close," Clara instructed, her voice steady despite the quivers in her stomach. The crowd shuffled closer together, a huddle of defiance against the unknown. Even the boy, still clutching his satchel tightly, looked to her as if she held the threads of their shared fate. Another knock, this one sharper, more demanding. It rattled Clara's composure. "If we don't answer, they might break down the door," a woman in the crowd whispered, her voice heavy with anxiety. "Or they might already be inside," Clara countered, scanning the corners of the room for any signs of danger. The shadows seemed to stretch, contorting as her imagination spiraled out of control. "But we can't let fear rule us. We need to know what they want." Just then, a voice boomed from the other side of the door, its tone dripping with authority. "You have no idea what you're meddling with. We're here to ensure your safety. We know what's happening in your town." Clara's brow furrowed at the lie wrapped in manipulation. They weren't here for their safety. They were here to silence any voices that dared to question their narrative. She took a deep breath, rallying every ounce of courage she could muster. "Who do you think you are?" Clara shouted back, surprising herself with the strength of her own voice. "Do you think we'll cower behind closed doors while you intimidate us? We deserve to know the truth." A tense pause followed. The stranger on the other side said nothing. It felt like the world had stopped, and Clara's heart seemed to beat louder against the silence. Around her, the crowd was transfixed, some faces illuminated by the dim light overhead, others shrouded in worried shadows. Then, the door swung open with a heavy creak. The silhouette of the figure was unmistakable, dressed in dark, tailored clothing, a briefcase in hand. The air turned stale with their presence. Clara felt her stomach twist. "What do you want from us?" She managed to keep her voice steady. The figure took a step forward, eyes scanning the room, assessing the quiet resistance in the faces surrounding Clara. "You think this is about freedom of speech? This isn't just your tiny town anymore. The implications of your actions could ripple far beyond these walls." "Then let them ripple," someone shouted from the back, emboldened by the confrontation. The sentiment spread, whispers mingling with new bravado. "We want to be silenced." Clara's heart swelled. They were ready, finally standing tall against the very walls meant to conceal their truths. The figure's demeanor shifted. Annoyance mingled with something like fear. It was a crack in their facade. "You need to understand what is at stake. McKinley's secrets are not yours to unravel." At the mention of the president, a murmur rippled through the crowd. It wasn't just about their town, it was far more significant. Clara felt a sense of urgency, but with it came clarity. "We will unravel whatever we can," she declared, her voice rising above the collective uncertainty. Attention hung heavily in the air. Outside the door, the darkness loomed like a storm about to break. But in that moment, Clara felt the charge of unity amongst her neighbors. They were more than just individuals. They were a community rallying for change, ready to face whatever storm approached. And as the figure's expression hardened in the eerie glow of the hall, Clara's mind raced. What had been hidden? What lay behind those walls? And how deep did the truth run? With her heart pounding like a drum, she realized the battle was just beginning. What would they uncover next? And more importantly, would they have the strength to confront the consequences? The figure stepped fully into the room, the distance shrinking like a drawn breath. Their presence was imposing, the tailored suit blending with the shadows that flickered in the dim light. Clara felt an urge to step back, but she held her ground. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, thrumming with the collective anxiety of those around her. "Listen to yourselves," the figure said, their voice dripping with a mix of condescension and concern. "You play with fire and don't even realize it. You want to dig and discover, but some truths are meant to stay buried." Clara noticed the flicker of doubt among her neighbors. Fear had a way of finding cracks in resolve, and the last thing she wanted was to lose the momentum they had built. "Buried truths come at a cost," she replied, her voice firm, casting her gaze across the crowd. "We deserve to know what's been hidden from us. Our lives are at stake." A young woman, someone Clara had known since childhood, suddenly spoke up. "Our children deserve to know the world they live in. If there is something we should fear, we can't just sit in silence." Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd, igniting fire behind her words. Clara felt hope flicker once more. Perhaps they could weather this storm together. But the figure's eyes narrowed, dark and calculating. "You have no idea what you're getting into. There are forces at play that will do anything to protect what they've built. This is not just about your town or even McKinley. It's much larger." "What's larger than the truth?" Clara questioned, feeling a cool vein of anger run through her. "If you care about our safety so much, shouldn't you bring it to light?" The figure hesitated, lips pressing into a thin line before speaking again. "You think you fight for truth, but you may actually be fighting the very chaos that truth ignites. It's dangerous out there. You'll put everyone at risk." Clara's heart raced. The threat hung in the air like an unspoken promise, urging silence, urging compliance. But she refused to entertain it. "I don't want to live in fear any longer. I, for one, am willing to risk everything to expose the truth." As if summoned by her declaration, a hand shot up from the back of the hall. It was the boy with the satchel, wide-eyed but determined. "I want to help. I want to know. My dad says secrets only protect the people telling them." Clara felt a rush such bravery from someone so young. It was a reminder of what they were fighting for. The community, the future, the children. She turned back to the figure, who now looked caught between annoyance and something akin to panic. "Why are you really here?" Clara pressed. "Are you here to threaten us or protect us?" "Both," the figure replied, their voice barely concealing their agitation. "But you want to listen until the repercussions come crashing down. You want answers? Fine. But know this, once you dive into this, there's no way back." The air thickened with the weight of their warning. Clara's breath hitched, a mix of fear and determination swirling within her. What lay ahead felt treacherous, yet somehow invigorating. She could see it reflected in the eyes of her friends and neighbors. "Then we'll dive together," Clara said, bolstering her voice against the shadow of doubt. "We share the risk and we share the truth." As the figure's expression darkened, Clara felt the room pulse with growing energy. They were standing on the brink of something monumental, an opportunity to break free from the chains of silence. But in that moment of daring conviction, a curious thought invaded her mind. What dreadful secrets would they find once they began to peel back the layers? And perhaps the most pressing question of all, would they be prepared to face the fallout of their discoveries? With a deep breath, Clara grasped the weight of the unknown. She was ready to confront it all, as long as they stood united. The air crackled with tension as she stepped forward, ready to forge a path into the depths of the truth. The real question was, would they emerge unscathed? Clara felt the tension shift in the room as her words settled among her neighbors. The low hum of uncertainty was replaced by a simmering energy. She caught glimpses of resolve in the eyes around her faces that seemed to shed fear like a heavy cloak. They were all in this together now. The figure's shadowy presence loomed larger, yet so did the courage of the community. You think bravery changes the outcome? They charged, fingers tapping against their chin. The truth doesn't come without sacrifice. Then let that sacrifice be ours, Clara replied, her words gaining strength as they rolled off her tongue. We've already lost too much to fear. It's time to reclaim our lives. A murmur of agreement spread like wildfire through the crowd, each person bolstered by Clara's fearless declaration. Those who had been hesitant, eyes casting downward, now lifted their heads, finding solidarity in the shared struggle. Just beyond her, the boy with the satchel nodded vigorously, his youthful determination a powerful reminder of innocence at stake. As the figure's mask of composure started to crack, Clara took a step closer. Tell us what you know. We deserve to understand the danger so we can confront it. For a moment, the figure hesitated, weighing the decision hanging in the air. Clara could see the internal battle raging, the desire to protect versus the need to divulge. Then, slowly, the figure exhaled, and a sardonic smile attempted to mask their unease. Very well. You want the truth? It isn't pretty a concoction of ambition, greed, and blood-soaked endeavors. What are you saying? Clara's heart raced, nerves dancing wildly in her stomach. Was this just another intimidation tactic? Or was there merit to their words? The truth does not just exist in words. It lies in actions that ripple outwards. The figure gestured, and Clara imagined the manifold connections that intertwined McKinley's decisions with lives shattered, futures stolen, and dreams extinguished. People began shifting uneasily, knowing they were on the brink of uncovering something monumental. A woman, her brow furrowed with concern, called out, "What do you mean by that?" What was McKinley hiding? With an exhale that resonated like a whispering wind, the figure began to speak, their voice a blend of authority and dread. McKinley was known to many as a man of the people, but beneath that facade lay secrets that delved deep into the fabric of our nation, from alliances forged in the shadows to enemies lurking beneath the surface. Every word fell heavy in the air. Clara's breath caught as images of disillusionment filled her mind, whole histories concealed behind the walls of political theater. But what was it all for? Clara pressed, her spirit igniting with the urgency of their mission. Was it power, control, or something more insidious? The figure's eyes darkened. You'll soon discover that what you seek may be more than mere scandal. It's about who really has the power over our lives and who is willing to go to war to keep it. Clara felt a chill race down her spine. This wasn't just an inquiry into the past. It was a confrontation with the present and future she had never anticipated. Was her quest for truth going to unearth dark forces that would come for them? The murmurs of uncertainty returned, half-formed and jagged. Some people began to move back, the fear she had aimed to fight creeping back into the hall like a slow tide. Do you want to back down, Clara? Are you ready to risk what she's awakened? The figure asked, their tone almost taunting. Clara's mind raced. She looked around at her neighbors, their faces a mix of confusion and hesitant determination. She had lit the spark, and now she had to decide if she would let it fizzle out or fuel the flames. No, she shouted, feeling the embers of defiance bloom in her chest. We're not turning away now. The truth is worth it. We'll face it together. As her voice echoed against the walls, she sensed the collective heartbeat of the room aligning with her resolve, igniting a flicker of courage. Yet a question loomed larger than before. As they ventured down this treacherous path, who among them would endure the weight of the truths they would uncover? The figure's gaze flickered as if weighing their own risks. What would they do now that their warning had fallen on ears ignited with fury? The curtain on this powerful secret world was just beginning to part, revealing shadows that danced just beyond sight. Clara steeled herself, heart racing with anticipation, as they prepared to plunge headfirst into whatever dark waters lay ahead. In the depths of deceit, what awaited them could change everything. But with every inch forward, one truth became clear. In this relentless pursuit of the unknown, they were standing at the edge of cataclysm. Would they emerge with answers, or would they unleash something that would spiral beyond their control? The air thickened in the room, an electric mix of anticipation and dread. Clara could feel her heartbeat echoing in her ears, a steady rhythm igniting the resolve that swirled within her. Every face around her was etched with determination, some frightened, others fierce. It was a blend that pulsated, a living testament to their shared plight. Together, she whispered to herself, grounding herself in the belief that they were all in this together. The boy with the satchel caught her eye again, his gaze unwavering. He seemed to possess a wisdom beyond his years, an understanding of the stakes that felt almost prophetic. "Tell us what we need to do," someone shouted from the back. The urgency in their voice sparked something deep inside Clara. "First, we need to understand," the figure replied, voice lowering into a conspiratorial tone. McKinley's greatest sin was not just in his hidden alliances, but in his ability to manipulate the very fabric of truth. He constructed a narrative that thrived on illusion. People only saw what he wanted them to see. Clara's mind raced. The truth was like an angry serpent, ready to strike. What narrative? What did he build that we are not seeing? The figure paused, a moment that felt like an eternity stretched thin between them. A facade of stability. He claimed to be a champion, yet behind closed doors, he forged alliances that compromised everything we stand for. Economies teetered on the brink. Lives were lost or ruined, all for the sake of power. Gasps rippled through the crowd, heads shaking in disbelief. This was real. It wasn't just political rhetoric, it was their lives being strip-mined by someone they had trusted. Clara's stomach churned at the thought of her family, her hometown, all caught up in the web of deceit. "What can we do?" "It feels hopeless," said an older woman, her voice wavering. "Hope is a fragile thing," they said, leaning in closer. "But it's more powerful than fear. When the truth is revealed, it can ignite a revolution. What we need is courage. To stand, speak up, and not let shadows dictate our lives." Clara felt a spark in her heart, an ember that transformed into flames. "Then we'll stand together. We have to reveal these truths. We need to call out the lies." A rallying shout broke through the crowd, resonating like a rallying cry. Clara could reach out and feel the energy swell. With each passing moment, she knew they were transforming from a group of scared neighbors into a united front. The figure turned to her, their expression shifting. "You recognize the step we must take? Be warned, you're treading a path full of danger. Uncovering too much may lead adversaries right to your door." Clara swallowed hard, but the fire within her wouldn't die. This was bigger than any one of them. She could sense the gravity of their journey ahead. "We are not afraid of the fight. We're more afraid of doing nothing." The figure stared at Clara, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of respect in their gaze. "Very well. But remember, once the door is open, there's no closing it. Are you prepared for what you'll uncover?" As Clara glanced around the room, the united faces of her neighbors told her everything she needed to know. Yes, they were ready. But beneath the determination lay a whisper of doubt. What if they unearthed something far darker than imagined? The question hung heavy, an unspoken weight stirring beneath the surface. "Then it's decided," she said, her voice steady. "We find the truth." A palpable silence fell, the weight of their commitment settling around them. Just as Clara felt a wave of hope wash over her, the figure murmured, "The truth changes everything. Prepare yourselves for the struggles ahead, because you may not like what you find." The unease returned, swirling like autumn leaves in a storm. Clara's heart raced. What if uncovering the truth meant uncovering a legacy of suffering? As they prepared to step into the unknown, she couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles were yet to come. With a final look toward the crowd, Clara felt the weight of her purpose. settle firmly in her chest. The time for quiet was over. The fight for truth was just beginning. Would they discover the justice they sought, or would they awaken horrors best left buried? Only time would tell. As the meeting drew to a close, Clara felt a rush of certainty against the tides of anxiety threatening to drown her resolve. The figures had all but slipped into the shadows, but their words lingered in the air around her, a tapestry woven from fear, ambition, and determination. She glanced toward the boy with the satchel, who had turned to her with a look that conveyed both challenge and hope. "Are we really ready for this?" he asked, his voice steady, yet soft enough for only her to hear. Clara brought her hand to her heart, feeling its rapid pulse, the drumming of a battle song. "If we're not, then who will be?" Those words ignited a fire in her chest, pulling her forward. The boy smiled faintly, the weight of the world lifting momentarily from his shoulders. They would need each other to shoulder what came next. "Let us move forward," Clara said, sensing her voice rally the group. "What's our first step?" The crowd began to disperse, neighbors speaking quietly, planning their actions amidst the lingering emotions. A shared glance among them, a nod, or a reluctant smile. Clara would save each moment in her memory, the first sparks of courage that would carry them toward a greater transformation. With the night crowd thinning and the streetlights flickering on, she led a small group toward a local diner, a place familiar and safe. They needed a plan. The clatter of dishes and high-pitched laughter eased the heaviness that had cloaked them as they sat down. The warmth of the diner enveloped them, but Clara could feel the uncertainty hovering just beneath the surface. "We need to dig deeper," she said, her hands instinctively fidgeting with a napkin. "If McKinley has allies hidden in places we can't imagine, our first target has to be his history, every scrap of it. There's got to be something we can use." Some eyebrows raised, and the older woman from earlier, the one whose shaky voice reflected doubt, leaned forward. "But how? We're just a group of locals. We don't have the means or connections." One of the men at the table, a mechanic with grease-stained hands, spoke up. "Maybe we don't need fancy tools, just our heads and hearts. Are there local historians willing to spill some secrets? What about public records? What if someone from within his circle is willing to talk?" The boy offered. "Someone who sees the truth and is afraid like we are?" Hope sprung anew, tightening Clara's chest. They had momentum now, little sparks igniting a growing fire. "We need to share what we find. No secrets among us. We have to be open if we want others to trust us." As commitment settled over them like a warm blanket, Clara's thoughts drifted to the bigger picture. What risks lay ahead? Would they have enough strength to withstand the backlash of unveiling these truths? Her eyes scanned their faces, familiar, affable, scared yet defiant. It wasn't only their lives at stake. It was the fabric of their community. The group outlined a plan, tossing topics between bites of pie and cups of coffee. Names of libraries, history teachers, anyone who might hold a key. Clara's stomach tightened with both excitement and fear. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, breaking the moment of electrifying resolve. A cook stormed out, his face flushed with anger. "Someone's been snooping around, looking for information about McKinley," he shouted, looking straight at Clara and her friends. The air in the diner shifted, an unspoken challenge hanging thick in the air. Clara's heart raced. Were they already being watched? She held the gaze of the cook, steadying herself. "We're just looking for the truth, but would the truth be enough to protect them when danger seemed to loom at every turn?" The weight of their mission felt heavier now, the shadows deeper as they left the diner behind. The streetlights flickered ominously, mirroring Clara's unease. The night felt more perilous somehow. What were they stepping into? The answer taunted her, just out of reach, like the truth itself. She could feel it. Change was just around the corner. But at what cost? The air felt charged as Clara stepped out of the diner, the weight of the cook's accusation clinging to her like a damp coat. With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath, trying to shake the clouds of doubt that hung over the group. They weren't just searching for the truth. They were standing at a precipice, teetering between ignorance and revelation. The boy with the satchel walked beside her, his presence a steadying force. "What do we do now?" he asked, the flicker of concern in his eyes matching her own. Clara glanced around, taking in the deserted streets that felt strangely unfamiliar. "We regroup. We can't let fear dictate our actions. We need to decide what information we can gather without drawing too much attention." As they walked, the warm glow from the streetlights cast long shadows, and Clara felt those shadows creeping into her mind, the risks, the enemies, the possible betrayals. Each option they considered seemed to thrum with danger. They had barely traveled a block when Clara's phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the heavy silence. She fished it out, her heart racing once more as she read a message from an unknown number. "I know what you're looking for. Meet me at LaRue Park tomorrow night. I have information on McKinley. Come alone." Clara's pulse quickened. A rush of both excitement and fear coursed through her veins. "I just got a message someone claims to have information," she said, voice barely louder than a whisper, her eyes darting to the boy. "But they want me to go alone." His eyebrows knit in concern. "That could be a trap. We should go as a group or not at all." She hesitated, glancing back at the diner. So much safety had been found there just moments before, a sanctuary amidst their uncertainty. But now, the stakes were higher. What if they really have something? What if this is the end of searching in the shadows? Or the beginning of something even darker, he countered. His voice was steady but cautious, urging her to think critically before diving in. "We could let others know, get help if things go sideways." Clara felt the tug of both choices, the possibility of truth and the weight of safety. The truth could empower them, but at what price? Trust was a fragile thing, and revealing their intent could risk everything they had built. "We'll discuss it tonight with the others," she finally decided, storing away the message. "I'll bring it up with everyone tomorrow. I can't shut the door on something that might help us." The group made their way to an open space that had been a playground once. It seemed quieter than it ever had, the emptiness echoing their unease. As they approached, Clara saw familiar faces already gathered, the hardened resolve etched in their expressions. "You okay?" one of them asked, a concerned gaze landing on Clara's face. "Just thinking," she replied, trying to ignore the noise of doubt swirling inside her head. The boy joined her side again, and they shared a knowing look as they prepared to share the weight they had collected over the evening. One by one, they recounted their ideas, fears, and the urgent need for action. Clara could see that the group was realizing the truth was not just a line in the sand, it was a boulder they were now charged to move. But with each revelation came the gnawing realization that danger was now closer than it ever had been, lurking like thick fog around them. As the meeting began to dissolve into small talks, Clara felt the familiar tug of uncertainty, a visceral sense that they were no longer just gatherers of truth. They were becoming players in a game they didn't fully understand. Tomorrow night held so many questions. Would she heed the call of an unknown ally in the dark? Or would this lead them down a path they might never return from? The weight of the choice nestled deep in her chest, as heavy as the night around her. What would she uncover if she dared to confront the shadows, and what price would come with it? She could feel the looming intensity of what lay ahead, as if the very air waited with bated breath for their decision to unfold. The morning sun broke over Cedar Grove, its rays illuminating the path to LaRue Park, where Clara stood alone, a fragile piece of paper clutched tight in her hand. Her heart raced as she replayed the message in her mind. "I know what you're looking for. Meet me at LaRue Park tomorrow night. I have information on McKinley. Come alone." Even now, every instinct told her to turn back, to return to the familiar faces of her neighbors, the community she had fought to unite. But the fire within her burned hotter than the fear. She took a deep breath, stepping forward into the unknown. The park was eerily quiet, but as she walked, she could hear the distant rustle of leaves, a gentle reminder of life continuing all around her. But not for long. Shivers of anxiety prickled her skin as she neared the designated meeting spot, an old oak tree that had stood steadfast through storms and sunshine. A shadow shifted behind the trunk, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. "You came," a voice called, low and cautious. The figure stepped into the light, a man in a weathered coat, his face etched with worry lines. She knew immediately it was Mr. Thompson, the historian whose whispered truths had already begun the unraveling of their lives. "I'm glad you're here," Clara said, her voice trembling yet firm. "But why alone? What is so dangerous that it required secrecy?" "We're at a crossroads," Thompson said, glancing around as if someone might be watching. "McKinley's machinations are deeper than our worst fears. There are people who don't want this truth exposed." Clara's determination surged. "What do you know?" He hesitated, weighing the risk in his mind. "I've uncovered connections between local businesses and the administration. Knights of the order, powerful individuals preserving the status quo. It goes all the way to the top. Your brave neighbors are fighting a battle they may not realize has already been lost unless we escalate our plans." Clara's heart sank. "You mean they'll stop us?" "They'll try." His jaw tightened. "But together, we can either let them silence us or rise against the tide. We need proof, documents, witness testimonies," a chorus of voices demanding justice. A thundercloud of anxiety rolled through Clara. "But what about my children? What if they come after us? I can't let them be caught in this mess." He placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Everything you do is for them. You must be brave enough to push against the darkness for their future." Clara took a step back, the weight of his words crashing into her with full force. She felt her fears swirling, but determination flickered within. "Then we'll gather what we can. I won't let fear rule me any longer." They spent hours discussing the web of corruption and plotting their next steps. Clara could see the community rallying in her mind, the faces of her neighbors united, fueled by the same fire she felt. She knew they would not turn away without a fight. As dusk began to settle, shadows danced around them, whispering secrets of the night. She knew that each decision she made from this point forward would lead them either into the light or deeper into the dark. Sitting beneath that old oak, she felt the moment stretch between fear and hope. Tomorrow, she would gather her community once more, share this new information, and urge them to take bold steps forward together. Upon her return, she walked back to her neighborhood with renewed vigor, her heart beating with a clear purpose. It was not just about exposing McKinley's lies. It was about protecting her children, her neighbors, and their shared future. Gathering everyone in the town hall again felt right, and Clara stood tall, her voice echoing through the crowd. "We're more than just victims. We're a community, and if we stand together, we can fight against these lies." Each face reflected back her resolve. The collective strength began to rise like a tide. Old friends clasped hands with former foes, their shared struggles coalescing into something beautiful, a movement toward change. Clara felt her fears shift, replaced by something much brighter. They were ready. They were united. Each child's laughter and each heartache became the fire that would light the way through this darkness. And as they began to chant, truth, justice, community, it echoed back through Cedar Grove, wrapping around them like a blanket, a promise of their determination and their refusal to let fear dictate their narrative. The battle ahead would be fierce, but she now believed they could confront it all. They were no longer just individuals animated by fear. They were a collective force ignited by the truth. Through unity, they would reclaim not just their dignity, but their rightful future, a future built on honesty, where their children could run, laugh, and dream without shadows lurking behind them. It was the dawn of a new day in Cedar Grove, one where truth would reign and justice would prevail. And so, with hearts full and spirits high, they embraced this change together. Now it was time for action. It was time to rise. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this explosive ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.